Hey coaches, welcome back to lesson 4. This time we're talking about analytics and wellness. In case you're wondering too, we're joined by a gaze tracker here. This is tracking where my eyes are viewed. Hopefully that's more interesting than it is annoying. And in case you can't tell, the webcam is right up at the top there. All right, so what we're going to do is evaluate some third-party analytics. The one I'm going to be taking us through is Mobalytics. It's amazing. There's some other coaching software that I've linked out on the website. Let's next up, we're going to review some possible things you could do for wellness here, like some plyometrics, stretching, injury prevention, and some other wellness resources and literature. So, getting started. Quick reminder: the idea behind our practice schedule was to develop purposeful practice, where students are deliberately doing things to get better at their fastest possible rate. The other thing we were doing was we're looking at how to play as a team and how that's different than how to play as an individual. Lastly, we want kids to be aware of their own psychology, how it's affecting their gameplay, their teammates, and how to manage that in a kind of an optimal setting. So, one thing that they're going to need is statistics. And the game client itself can deliver quite a bit of statistics. It's quite amazing. What I like to do though is I like to run a desktop application called Mobalytics. And what it does is it'll download all of those. It'll do actually a pre-game analysis, a post-game analysis, and it'll also track your long-term stats and display those clearly. So, one thing it'll do is it'll provide what's hot in the pro scene. This is known as the meta. So meta means like kind of the optimal way to play the game. It'll track based on the patch changes, which champions are up and which are down. It'll assign them to different roles based on their skill set. I'm a Diana main, so I'm stoked that she's god tier for mid lane. Although I play her in jungle more often than not. It'll also tell you what runes you should set up, what skill order, what items, pretty much everything you could ever want to know. It'll even give you which matchups your champion is strong and weak against. So you don't need to know the meta. You don't need to watch a ton of pro replays. There's third-party groups that are doing that for you, and then distilling that down to the player base. You're at actually, this is so widely used in one form or another that you're at a disadvantage if you're not doing this. Some other applications I'm aware of are BaseCheck or op.gg. Those are all League of Legends specific. I know there's also some for Overwatch. I haven't branched out too much beyond that yet. Okay, so I mentioned that it takes stats and it distills them down into a user-friendly form. You can see here, here's some different aspects of my gameplay. I have aggression maxed out, which is awesome. That was the goal. I'm going to keep it right there at 99.9%, and hopefully I'll get a little bit less bad at dying in the process. Yep, it tells me exactly what I'm doing. And it's also giving me stats compared to people of various different ranks. I can compare myself to other Iron and Bronze players. I could compare myself to pros, and I could get side-by-side comparisons to show where things are going well, where things are weak, so that I can set appropriate goals after that. Now, may have noticed that I'm using an eye tracker. I've got one of these in the closed beta. It's awesome. I'm trying to score a whole team set through a sponsorship so that our entire team can run them. But what it's actually doing now is it's basically using big data and AI for good. So it'll actually analyze where I'm watching in the game too to try to get me to avoid tunnel vision, try to get me more map aware or more situationally aware or tracking champions better. So there is some pretty high level feedback you can get from this. That is, again, is all through Mobalytics, provides all those things. The other thing you can do is you can hop on YouTube. I'm linked out sites for both League of Legends and Overwatch, where you can basically watch pro players. In Challenger replays, what you can do is you can watch specific champions playing in specific roles on the most recent patch. To watch what a pro does, then you can go try to emulate that behavior yourself. Or a site like SkillCapped, which has a ton of free videos as well as a subscription-based set, you can actually get tutorials on everything you need to know to really understand the strategy and tactics involved. So, by the way, kids will have watched a lot of pro gameplay. They'll probably have some favorite pros that they've watched a ton. They're not necessarily doing it with an analytic sense, they're doing it for entertainment. Like, they're definitely learning something, but they're not learning as much as they could. So, one thing to consider too is that they watch these in a way that they're going to deliberately take something from that video and then apply it in the very next practice session. Same thing over here. What's beautiful about SkillCapped and other similar websites is that they slow down, they break it down into step-by-step lessons, usually about 5 or 10 minutes each, and they very clearly provide the metacognition that's going through the pro's head. So they don't just tell you what to do, they tell you how to think and why to do it. And that's a really valuable lesson that I don't think we as coaches are able to provide necessarily. So again, super good resources. Uh, Next up, you can also find out about the life of a pro. You guys may have heard of Faker, probably most famous League of Legends player of all time. It breaks down, which what I thought was interesting, his day by day practice routine. So yeah, basically, oh, that's a whole lot better than what I was doing, right? Anyway, it breaks down how much time he's spending doing various things. You can talk about how a lot of his income isn't just from his team salary, it's from his stream revenue, although he also gets a little bit of money in prizes. And you can talk about how pros have been burning out like crazy. They also suffer from repetitive stress injuries like carpal tunnel, and they age out as their reflexes slow. A person at age 30 has 150 milliseconds slower reflexes than a person at age 18. There's a whole bunch of reasons why pros have very short careers. Obviously, the professional teams are trying to deal with this in any way they can. And that brings us to our next point. Point is that we need to prevent injuries in our players. And you're like, oh, our players are in high school. They're not going to get carpal tunnel. I actually have one or two players who are actively managing some preliminary soreness. We're trying to make them aware of everything they can do. I talked to some contacts. They got me in touch with Halish Patel at UC Irvine. He's the esports coach there who works with all the fitness stuff, who in turn got me Dr. Levi Harrison. He's an orthopedist. His stuff is reputable. He's got great short videos designed specifically around injuries suffered by gamers and what you can do about them. What I would caution is that a lot of the other websites out there on the web that claim to be esports specific stuff, they kind of go against the grain of what I've learned in dealing with similar things like shin splints in my career as an endurance athlete. So I would maybe stick to a couple reputable sources here unless you have the wherewithal to evaluate those yourselves. Also, for quick plyometrics and stuff, Gretchen Reynolds of New York Times has some stuff published. Here's a 7-minute plyo workout with an emphasis on upper body and core, as well as some cardio. If you only have 7 minutes, that'd be a great thing to do. So again, there's some resources out there. You can incorporate some of these in your day-to-day practices. It's also important to talk about sleep, talk about nutrition. There's some great articles that I'm going to link on the website where pros are now eating celery and doing yoga. I'm not totally exaggerating, and kind of have dedicated trainers for these types of things. Now, hopefully, our students aren't playing enough to where they need that, but they should definitely consider incorporating wellness into their daily routine. So hopefully you understand that there are third-party analytics out there. The one I gave you an example of was called Mobalytics. These make it really easy to look at stats and understand what you're looking at, access them, and set goals quickly and efficiently. They also get you informed on game meta and can help even in scouting and coming up with team compositions and strategies. Hopefully you also understand that there's some resources out there which I think you should check out right after this video. All right, you guys have a good one.